Understanding the silent signals of a toxic relationship. Sounds dramatic, right? But what if I told you the most dangerous relationships don't leave bruises? They leave confusion, self-doubt. They twist your memory, drain your energy, and call it love. You ever feel like you're walking on eggshells around someone, but you can't explain why? Like something's off, but every time you bring it up, you're the problem? Yeah, that's not love. That's a warning. And most people don't see it until they've already lost themselves. But not you. Not today. Stick with me. What you're about to hear could save more than just your heart. It could save your life. Now listen to me. Toxic relationships don't start toxic. They start magnetic, addictive, like a soulmate just walked into your life. But here's the twist: sometimes the person you think is a blessing is actually a test. Let's break this down. It's not just the shouting, it's the silent punishments. It's not just jealousy, it's disguised control. It's not just arguments, it's how you start questioning if your feelings are even valid. That's psychological warfare. That's manipulation. And here's the real kicker: most people stay not because they're blind, but because they doubt what they see. You second guess your instincts. You think maybe I'm overreacting, but your gut has never lied to you. That feeling in your chest, that's wisdom knocking. And it won't stop until you open the door. When I was younger, I used to think love was supposed to hurt a little. Like passion had to come with pain. But pain isn't proof of love. Peace is. Respect is. Safety is. Now let me offer you something in this video. I'm not just talking about the obvious red flags. I'm going deeper than that. We're going to dig into the silent signals, the hidden habits that can make or break you emotionally. Because sometimes what doesn't scream can still destroy. If you've ever felt like something was off, but you couldn't name it, this message is for you. Let's walk this road together. Let's learn the truth about toxic dynamics. And not with judgment, but with clarity. And maybe, just maybe, you'll finally stop apologizing for expecting decency. This isn't just relationship advice. This is how you reclaim yourself. Stay with me, because the next part might just open your eyes to something you've been trying not to see. Now let's get into what most people never talk about: the subtle patterns, the quiet behaviors, the things that seem small but leave big scars. Let me ask you something real. Have you ever shared something personal, something raw, and the person you have twisted it back on you later? That's not love. That's ammunition gathering. Toxic people are collectors. They collect your fears, your insecurities, your dreams, not to protect them, to weaponize them. It starts like this: you say, "I'm scared, I'm not good enough." They say, "No, baby, you're amazing." And then, 1 month later in an argument, they look at you and say, "This is exactly why you'll never be enough for anyone else." Now look, that's not just cruel. That's strategic. That is psychological sabotage in slow motion. And you know what makes it worse? They say it with a calm voice. They sprinkle in just enough love to confuse you. And now you're thinking, maybe I deserve that. Maybe I made them angry. Maybe it's me. No, it's not you. It's the system they've set up. It's the cycle you've been caught in. See, this is what most people miss when they talk about narcissists. They don't just love, bomb, and ghost. They marry you. They become what you want to see. And once you're in deep, they flip the script. Now, they start defining your worth. They tell you who you are. And over time, you start believing them more than you believe yourself. I've seen this happen in friendships. I've seen it in business. I've seen it behind closed doors in marriages that look perfect on Instagram. And here's the real danger: when someone messes with your reality long enough, you'll start apologizing for reacting to your own pain. Think about that. You cry, and they say you're too emotional. You get quiet, and they say you're being distant. You speak up, and now you're too much. That's not love. That's controlled rest and affection. That's why it's so hard to spot the signs of a toxic relationship, because they hide behind what looks like love. Let me give you a pattern I've seen over and over again. Step 1, idealization. They put you on a pedestal. They say you're perfect. They make you feel like the sun rises and sets in your eyes. You feel like you finally found someone who gets you. Step 2, devaluation. Suddenly, your quirks are annoying. Your boundaries are issues. Your needs are too much. You're not being loved anymore, you're being managed. Step 3, discard or domination. Either they start ignoring you or they push harder to own you. This is where a lot of people break down emotionally, because your brain is stuck on that idealized version of them. You remember how sweet they were, how safe you felt back then, and now you think, if I just do a little better, maybe that version will come back. But that version was never real. It was a costume. And the longer you chase it, the more you lose yourself. This is what I mean when I say toxic relationships are silent destroyers. It's like carbon monoxide. You don't see it. You don't smell it, but it's poisoning you anyway. I once knew someone, a strong person, who stayed in a toxic marriage for over 10 years. They weren't weak. They were just deeply hopeful. Hope is beautiful, but when you apply it to the wrong person, it turns into a trap. That's how toxic people operate. They live in your hope. They use your forgiveness as fuel. And if you're the kind of person who sees the best in people, they'll make you feel like you owe them that forever. But let me be real with you. You don't owe anyone your peace. You don't owe anyone your sanity. And you sure as hell don't owe anyone unlimited access to your heart just because they once said, I love you. Love without respect is just manipulation. So ask yourself, are you in a relationship where you feel more confused than clear, more drained than empowered, more guilty than safe? Because if the answer is yes, that's not just a red flag. That's a red parade. And I know some of you watching this right now are thinking, but it's not all bad. They've been through stuff. They need me? Let me hit you with something. You are not a rehab center for broken adults who refuse to heal. You are not a punching bag for people who never learned emotional regulation. You are not a mirror for their insecurity. You are a whole human being with dreams, with purpose, with power. And the more you shrink yourself to fit into their comfort zone, the more you betray the greatness inside you. Stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to look at how to identify these silent signals before they break you. We're going to give language to things you felt for years but couldn't explain. This is Wisdom Recorder, and we're just getting started. Now, let's dig deeper. Let's talk about the silent signals, the ones you miss because you've been trained not to question them. See, in toxic relationships, not everything is about yelling or fighting. Sometimes it's about what's not being said. And sometimes the scariest part is not the chaos, it's the silence. You know what silence I'm talking about, that cold silence after an argument, when they don't speak to you for hours, maybe even days, not to find peace, not to reflect, but to punish. That's called emotional withdrawal. It's one of the strongest tools in a narcissist's kit because it keeps you chasing them. And once you start chasing, they've got the power, not by force, but by absence. They don't raise their voice. They lower your worth. They don't leave bruises. They leave outs. That's how dangerous subtle abuse is. It wears your mind down until you start policing your own emotions just to avoid conflict. Let me give you something else to look for: shifting goalposts. This is when they keep changing the rules of how to earn their love or approval. One day, they say, just be honest with me. You open up, you share something deep, and suddenly you're being attacked for what you shared. Next day, they say, I need space. You give them room, and they say, you're cold and distant. That's a trap, because no matter what you do, it's rough. And guess what happens next? You start trying harder. You give more. You sacrifice more. Until one day, you realize you've forgotten who you are trying to please, someone who never actually wanted peace. See, a healthy relationship has clarity, but a toxic one, it thrives on confusion. Confusion keeps you stuck. It makes you believe that maybe, just maybe, you're the problem. But let me hit you with this. If you're the only one apologizing, if you're the only one changing, if you're the only one doing the inner work, then you're not in a relationship. You're in a performance, and the audience is always ungrateful. Let's talk about gaslighting, because this is a silent killer of your self-trust. Gaslighting isn't just lying. It's denying your reality so convincingly, you start to believe you're crazy. You say, that hurt me. They say, you're too sensitive. You say, I feel ignored. They say, you're imagining things. Over time, you stop bringing things up at all. You stop sharing. You start shrinking. Now you're tiptoeing through conversations. Now your heart's carrying 80 pounds of silence. Now you've become your own censor. And here's the part no one tells you: toxic people don't always act like villains. Sometimes they bring you food. Sometimes they kiss you on the forehead. Sometimes they say, no one will ever love you like I do. But love without accountability is just manipulation with a side of charm. I remember watching a friend go through this: smart, talented, confident, and then she got with someone who made her question everything. Her style, her career, her friends, her goals. Little by little, she gave up pieces of herself just to make that man feel secure. And by the end, she didn't recognize herself in the mirror. That's the power of a toxic connection. It doesn't need chains. It just needs access to your mind. And once it lives there long enough, you'll start doing the damage to yourself. Now, I want you to think, have you ever stayed in a relationship because you were scared of starting over? Because let's be real, toxic relationships aren't always about romance. They can be in families, in friendships, in business partnerships, any place where control hides behind connection. Some people stay because of history. We've been through so much. We built a life. Some people stay for appearances. What will people say if we break up? And some people stay out of fear. What if no one else ever loves me? What if I'm really the problem? That's how loss aversion wraps you. You don't want to let go of what you invested. But let me tell you, some costs don't heal your soul. The time you spent suffering won't become worth it just because you keep suffering. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is leave before the next apology, before the next promise, before the next manipulation. And I know this is heavy. I know some of y'all feel like this video is peeling back wounds you didn't want to face. The healing starts with clarity. You can't clean a wound you're too afraid to look at. So here's what I want you to hold on to. You are not broken. You are not too sensitive. You are not difficult to love. You're just finally learning to see clearly. In the next part, we're going to expose the core reasons why we normalize toxicity, why smart people get stuck, and what you can do step by step to reclaim your self-worth and rebuild your inner peace. Stay locked in. This isn't just about relationships. This is about liberation. Let's talk about why we allow toxic relationships to live rent-free in our lives. Because the truth is, This isn't just about someone treating you poorly, it's about why you let it continue. And before you blame yourself, stop. Because this isn't about weakness, it's about programming. We've been taught since childhood that love is supposed to be earned. That if someone pulls away, you chase. If someone gets cold, you get warmer. And if someone hurts, you make excuses for them because maybe didn't mean it. That's the trap. That's the belief system that makes toxic relationships feel like home. For a lot of people, emotional abuse doesn't feel foreign, and it feels familiar. Because maybe you grew up in a home where love was inconsistent, where affection had strings attached, where you had to be perfect to be accepted. So now, as an adult, you confuse chaos with connection. You feel alive when someone is unpredictable. You feel like you're in love when you're constantly on edge. But love should not feel like anxiety. Love is not supposed to feel like waiting for a storm to pass. It's supposed to be the shelter, not the hurricane. And this is where the healing has to begin with awareness. Because once you recognize that your normal was never healthy, you get to something new. Something safe. Something real. Here's something else people don't talk about enough. A toxic relationship rewards you just enough to keep you hooked. It's like a slot machine. Every now and then you get a win. They show kindness. They apologize. They make you laugh again. And you think, there it is, this is the person I fell in love with. But that's not a breakthrough. That's a reset button. A cycle you've been conditioned to trust. Think of it this way. When someone hurts you, apologizes, and keeps hurting you, that's not love. That is strategy. It's emotional manipulation. And it works because deep down, you're still hoping the real them is the nice one. But if someone only shows their best self when they're afraid of losing you, that's not growth. That's survival mode. They're not changing. They're recalculating how to keep control. Let me break it down with a metaphor. Imagine you're holding a beautiful glass. It's cracked, but you keep pouring water into it anyway. You hope if you just hold it steady enough, maybe it'll stop leaking. But it won't, because the problem isn't you pouring it wrong. The problem is the glass is broken. That's what happens when we try to love someone into being who they're not ready to become. We keep pouring and pouring until there's nothing left for ourselves. And now I know this isn't easy. I know you're hearing this and thinking, but what if I walk away and they finally become who I always knew they could be? Let me say this clearly, if someone only becomes better after you leave, then they were never doing it for love. They were doing it for loss. Your pain shouldn't be the price they pay to grow. You are not the training ground for someone else's maturity. And you are not a lesson for anyone who refuses to learn. Now let's address one more thing: why smart, driven, emotionally intelligent people still fall into these patterns. It's because toxic people don't attack your weakness, they attack your strengths. If you're kind, they exploit your compassion. If you're loyal, they test how far you'll go. If you believe in second chances, they give you reasons to offer a third, fourth, and fifth. So hear me on this, it's not that you're broken. It's that your gifts were misused. But that's not where your story ends. Because once you recognize the pattern, you can interrupt it. You can draw the line. You can stop handing over your piece like it's a down payment on someone else's potential. You know what real strength looks like. It's not just staying. It's knowing when to go. It's standing up for your inner peace like it's sacred because it is. And listen, you don't have to hate them. You don't have to call them a monster. You don't even have to get revenge. But you do have to protect your energy like your life depends on it. Because honestly, your joy does. The signs of a toxic relationship aren't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just the slow fading of your light. And the moment you realize that love isn't supposed to hurt more than it heals. That's when you take your power back. In the next part, I'm going to walk you through how to rebuild that power. Step by step, we're going to talk about boundaries, about regaining your voice, about trusting your instincts again because they've been speaking to you this whole time. Stay with me, because what's coming next is freedom. You've seen the red flags. You felt the weight. But the real question now is, what do you do next? Because knowledge without action is just regret in disguise. And I don't want you walking away from this with more pain. I want you walking away with power. Let's start here. Boundaries are not walls. They're doors you choose to open or close. A boundary says you can come this far, but no further. And guess what? Toxic people hate boundaries. Why? Because boundaries force them to confess that your life is not theirs to control. Here's a truth I wish someone had told me earlier. Every time you say yes to someone toxic, you're saying no to your peace. You're saying no to your growth. No to the version of yourself you're supposed to become. And yeah, it's uncomfortable at first. Setting boundaries feels like breaking rules you didn't even know were there. But that discomfort, that's freedom in its early stages. And freedom doesn't always feel good in the beginning. Sometimes it feels lonely. Sometimes it feels like guilt. But with time, it starts to feel like breathing again. Let's talk practical. Step 1, get honest. You can't heal what you won't acknowledge. If the relationship makes you question your worth, your memory, your emotions, name it. Speak it out loud. Because if you keep hiding the pain, you'll keep protecting the person who caused it. Step 2, cut off the validation loop. Toxic people thrive on attention, whether it's love, anger, or even just checking in. So when you go silent, they panic. That's when they come back with flowers, promises, and that "I've changed" speech. But if someone truly changed, they wouldn't need to convince you. You would see it. And it wouldn't come with guilt trips. It would come with consistent action. Step 3, return to yourself. After a toxic relationship, you lose track of who you are. So start small. What music do you like? What hobbies did you stop doing? What opinions did you bury to avoid arguments? Rebuild that foundation brick by brick. I want to share a story. A man I once met had spent 10 years in a relationship where his partner controlled every part of his life. She dictated his job choices, his friends, even the way he dressed. By the end, he didn't recognize himself. But one day, he did something simple. He walked into a bookstore and picked up a novel he used to love before they met. He said it was the first time he felt like himself in years. That moment, it matters. Because healing doesn't come all at once. It comes in moments of remembering who you are. And if you've left a toxic relationship or you're planning to, you need to hear this. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them explanations. You don't owe them another chance to manipulate your heart. Your healing doesn't require their understanding. It requires your commitment. Let's get into something even deeper: forgiveness. People think forgiveness means inviting someone back into your life. But real forgiveness is about releasing yourself. It's saying, I'm done carrying this poison in my chest. Because hatred is heavy. Bitterness is exhausting. You forgive for your future, not for their comfort. So I'm going to leave you with some affirmations, not cheesy and not soft, but real words to reprogram a brain that's been gaslit for too long. I'm not responsible for someone else's behavior. I am allowed to protect my peace without apology. I am worthy of a love that doesn't hurt. I am no longer shrinking to make others comfortable. I do not chase love, I become love. If you say these every day, you're not just rewiring your mind, you're reintroducing yourself to yourself. And you might just be surprised how powerful that person really is. Before we wrap this up, Let me say something as clearly as I can. You were not meant to suffer in silence. You were not created to walk on eggshells. You were not born to be someone's emotional punching bag. You were born to thrive. To love in full color, not in shadows. So take this video as your permission slip to walk away, to let go, to choose peace over history, to choose your future over their drama. Where wisdom recorded, your knowledge source. And if this video touched you, if you felt seen, heard, or empowered, subscribe and like for more soul-level content. You're not alone, and you're not behind. You're just waking up. And that's the most powerful thing you'll ever do.